Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, dear brothers and sisters, if they're listening. It's been a while since I came here. My father has been quite sick. He's been admitted into hospital about 3 times in the last 60 days. So alhamdulillah, he's back home now. So jazakumullah khairan for those brothers who made dua and visited and so forth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give all of our parents who are still alive a healthy and blessed life, and for those of our parents who are have passed away, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them the highest level of paradise and to allow us to fulfill our rights of being excellent towards them. So, without further ado, who remembers, I know it's been quite a while, but who remembers why we're here? What the topic of these discussions are? Stories from the Quran, yes. And let's hear just 2 wisdoms or benefits behind reflecting on stories from the Quran.
Improve our deen.
Improve our deen, how?
By implementing what the Quran tells us.
By implementing what we learn, yes. That's a good one. Yeah. These stories, they're not just stories for any reason. They're actually filled with lessons for us to take away, to implement, to reflect on, to draw parallels from. Right? And secondly, very important one reason why we're here, hopefully. Ibadah, excellent. Right? Uncle took both of them, mashallah, because everyone's asleep. So I guess good sportsmanship. It's ibadah. Anytime we reflect on the Quran, inshallah, and we do it with the right intention, regardless of, or in addition to the benefits you draw for your daily life and so forth, in and of itself, it's an act of worship. Right? It's an act of servitude, it's an act of ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, let us remember that, as always, so that we're in the right frame of mind entering this ibadah, and also, with the intentions and that go along with that. And also let's try to reflect upon certain messages and lessons that we can draw from for our lives today. Now, today, I don't know if the announcement was made, but we're talking about the life of Qarun, or the story of Qarun in the Quran. Right, so who can start us off? Who can tell us about this man? Did you expect me to tell the story?
He was a Jew.
He was a Jew from the Bani Israel.
Very influential.
He was very influential, and he was arrogant.
His wealth was so great they had to have men to carry the keys of the safe, the safes that he had.
His wealth was so great that he had to have men to carry the keys to the treasures. Yeah, he's well known for having a vast amount of wealth, and he's one of the examples people give. Right, the kind of textbook example of somebody who let wealth get to them. Like Fir'aun is the example of someone who let power get to his head. Likewise, Qarun is the archetype of the wrong type of influence wealth has on you. But there's one thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about Qarun that we often don't reflect on that much. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us his story in Surah Al-Qasas, which begin the majority of the surah is talking about who? Who is Surah Al-Qasas talking about? Musa alayhi salam. Right? His story, his life, showing how Allah raised him, right? Under his guidance, under his care, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though he was separated from his parents as a baby, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows he's taking care of him, and talking about Musa alayhi salam and his trials and his da'wah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says towards the end of the surah, Inna Qaruna kana min qawmi Musa. Now verily, Qarun was from the people of Musa alayhi salam, i.e. he was from Bani Israel. Right? And Ibn Kathir says, he reports that he was his cousin. Qarun's father and Musa alayhi salam's father were brothers. Right? So this is somebody right up there when it comes to his lineage, very close to a prophet. Inna Qaruna kana min qawmi Musa fabagha alayhim. And this is the part that we often just gloss over. And he transgressed against them, against his people, against Bani Israel. And another interpretation is, and he betrayed them. He was a traitor towards them. And some narrations mention that Fir'aun used to use Qarun against his own people. And this is one of the ways he was made wealthy. Right? Qarun, in other words, to put it in a modern vocabulary, he was a sellout. He was an Uncle Tom type figure, right? And we all know these types of figures who enrich themselves at the expense of their own people. And subhanallah, you know, the Quran, it gives examples, right, that really speak a truth which transcends beyond the actual example. And you'll find this particular truth in any type of exercise of power, any type of authoritarian rule, any type of oppression, right? You'll have this type of feature in it, whether it's African slaves taken to European or US plantations, slave masters favoring certain slaves over others, right? And Malcolm X, rahimahullah, he had the famous lecture about the house Negro and the field Negro, right? The one who was brought close to the master, he was given so many privileges compared to the field slave who was beaten, treated harshly, oppressed to unimaginable extents, right? This type of, so from then to different types of oppression throughout history, right? Even Nazi Germany, for example, the Holocaust against Jews, right? There were I think 100,000 or something Jewish people who fought alongside the Nazis, right? And even until today, right? If you see John Perkins' famous book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. So I keep looking this way because the mic's there. John Perkins, he confessed, he wrote an amazing book about what he calls economic hitmen, okay, economic imperialism, where US corporations would go into third world countries, right, and essentially coerce them into huge loans that they couldn't, that were designed for them to default on, that they couldn't pay, they couldn't afford, which would in turn enslave them essentially, to a type of US hegemony. Okay, either UN votes, building bases in their countries, or controlling their natural resources, right? And you might think, how can somebody let another country do that to their own people? Why they would choose certain families in those poor countries and make them wealthy beyond their wildest dreams, right? So have a friend in those third world countries, enrich that family, that dynasty, make them, prop them up as dictators, for example, and they would get a few dollars off of every barrel of oil or whatever, that was being exported for their country, while everyone else in that country is being starved to death, being deprived of, actual development, independent development programs. So people would be dying from completely curable diseases, while some people in those countries, are driving Bentleys and importing Mercedes and so forth. So this truth, right, of a traitor betraying one's own people for some kind of worldly gain, this transcends the example here, right? And Qarun is given as a kind of archetype. So, inna Qaruna kana min qawmi Musa fabagha alayhim wa atainahu min al-kunuzi ma inna mafatihahu latanu'u bil-usbati ulil quwwa. As the brother here said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, or he was given, treasures to such an extent that it would require a group of 10 strong men just to carry the keys to each vault, right? And the keys here means a plank of wood that would secure the vault. It's not keys like we have, you can imagine, like a massive key that you've got in your pocket. No, these are really heavy, massive planks of wood to secure vaults, to lock them, right, publicly. إذ قال له قومه لا تفرح إن الله لا يحب الفرحين. And as he's doing this public display, carrying his keys and having them open and close and checking on his bank balance, so to speak, some knowledgeable people from his own people noticed something, the delight he was having in his wealth, this rejoicing he was having. And they said to him, don't rejoice at this wealth. Don't feel happy. Don't feel exultant. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the haughty people, the people who are, happy and arrogant with this type of wealth. And they proceed to give him some advice, which is very, very, very golden for us, right? And this story is going to be a bit uncomfortable for us naturally, right? Because we all like a bit of, the dunya naturally. We're all, allured to the glitter and glamour of this life, right? And if we really think about it, me including myself, we all really have to eventually rethink our relationship with wealth, right? And hoarding wealth and extravagance and so on and so forth. But this is going to be quite maybe difficult for us to really reflect on, right? But that's even more reason that we need to sometimes talk about these things. And one thing, especially with the statements of Qarun, one thing we want to bear in mind is, and this is a common feature throughout many stories in the Quran, is that we'll think, how could he be so misguided? How can somebody be so stupid to say something like this or do something like that, right? But these stories are giving us examples of people doing things and saying things to the nth degree, right? Maybe in an extreme way. But those things exist in ourselves to a lesser degree. Maybe implicitly with how we treat one another, how we approach wealth, for example, right? Now, his people gave him some very important advice. Okay, firstly they said, don't rejoice at this wealth, right? Particularly concerning how you got it, right? Don't look down upon others and so forth. Then they said, وَابْتِغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ, and seek through it, use your wealth, what Allah has given you, to seek the home of the hereafter. Okay? And this is a balance that they're talking about. Again, these words aren't just for Qarun, right? This is for us to reflect upon. Use what you have. Okay? And it's, they said that the ma here, fi ma atak Allah, it purposefully includes ambiguity, right? And width, breadth of so many things, not just wealth, in other words. If Allah has given you wealth, use it to buy the home of the akhirah. If Allah has given you strength, use that to invest in your home in the akhirah. If Allah has given you intelligence, use that. If Allah has given you an ability to speak, use that. All of the things that Allah has given you, use them to seek the home of the hereafter. Some of us are very, very talented, mashallah, right? But who swoops in and catches all the graduates from the best universities in their final year and ships them off to, graduate programs, right? Banks, financial firms, these types of mega multinational corporations. Why? Because they know these people are talented and Allah has given them something, but they're using them, right, to enrich themselves, exploiting people, or even encouraging, luring people to use what they have been given, right, to seek a bigger house, a big car, the best life possible, right? Allah isn't saying ignore that. Right next after this in the ayah, they mention وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا, and don't forget your portion from the dunya. But first, the goal has to be aligned properly, right? We might spend so many hours in the office, so many hours at work, so many hours doing this or that, and our families, our children, they never see us. Our neighbors, they never hear from us, right? They never, I'm talking about myself here as well, they never receive the kindness, the excellence, the ihsan that we're supposed to show them. Why? Because we got the balance wrong. But it doesn't mean, you just indulge yourself in all types of Islamic activism, dawah, running the masjid, running the Islamic society, doing this event, doing that event, so that you burn yourself out and you don't have any energy, any time left for yourself. That's why they said, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا, and don't forget your nasib from the dunya, your portion or your responsibilities. Don't forget that. So they're giving him this advice, and indirectly they're giving us all this advice. And they continue, وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ, and show ihsan, show generosity, kindness, how Allah has shown you generosity. Right? i.e., don't forget, don't just make it about you. Don't just make it about you and your wealth, or even you and your personal relationship with Allah. No. What about the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah has given you this wealth, Allah has given you these skills, management skills, human resource skills, IT skills, intelligence, whatever, strength, physical strength. وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Show generosity with this, how Allah has shown you generosity by giving it in the first place. وَلَا تَبْغِي فَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. This is a very interesting piece of advice. And don't desire corruption in the land. One of the obvious kind of wisdoms behind them telling him this is that he was actively involved in oppression. He was actively involved in being Fir'aun's man on the inside. Right? However, some of the ulama mentioned something quite subtle, and that is for everyone else to reflect on this, and that is anyone with power, with wealth, with position, anyone who is looked up to, even if it's just you, with regards to your children, they look up to you. If somebody in that position does fasad, right, does something wrong, okay, if they see the imam, for example, of the masjid, he's on holiday, I can't say, give an example like this. If they see an imam of a masjid somewhere, doing some kind of sin, or slipping in his ibadah, right? Maybe not praying his sunnah, maybe having bad manners, or doing whatever, not reaching the mark, then naturally what's going to happen? People are going to say, yeah, I saw the imam doing that, it's alright. Right? Or my father, they will say, your children may say, my father used to, astaghfirullah, smoke. Or so it must not be that big a deal. People who are looked up to have a particular responsibility not to have themselves used as some kind of agent of spreading corruption and fasad. And that's why, interestingly, they said, "Inna Allah la yuhibbul mufsidin," not fasidin. Allah doesn't love the mufsidin, the people not just who are corrupt, right? Yani without a subject, but the people who corrupt. Does that make sense? A fasid is somebody corrupt. A mufsid is somebody who corrupts, i.e. others. Right? This is what they honed in on in this ayah. And they know, right, that wealth in particular, and we all should recognize this, wealth, it can lead to a culture of arrogance. And one of probably the saddest, I suppose, source of corruption, right, is everyone, particularly the less well off, being subjected to wealthy standards of living. Either by looking at wealthy people, or in our culture now, this celebrity culture. Look at these massive houses on TV, look at this program dedicated to showing, lifestyles of rich and famous people. Right? And it has an effect on the rest of society. And as we'll see in the next part of the ayah, or the next few ayat. Okay? But before that, wealth can lead to a whole variety of vices, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this story a very, very dangerous one in particular, right? And that is what Qarun actually said. When he's being advised of the responsibilities that wealth brings, and he as the wealthy person has, he said, قال إنما أوتيته على علم عندي. This is a destructive statement. Right? He said, I was only given this because of some knowledge I had. I was only given this because of something I had. And this is something we hear all the time. Right? Or we might not say this, like I mentioned in the beginning. Nobody would be maybe stupid enough to explicitly say this. But internally, what do we feel? How many times have we felt, I worked hard for that. I deserve that. In and of themselves, these aren't like shirk statements, don't get me wrong. But there is an element of me, I, forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why they said this statement is one of three that you should be very, very, very careful of. Ibn al-Qayyim said this. Ana wali wa indi. Remember this? Ana, me, wali, mine, wa indi, or with me. Right? Or I have. Taken from three statements from three wretched individuals. Number one, Ana khayrun minhu khalaqtani min narin wa khalaqtahu min teen. Who said this? Iblis. Right? I'm better than him. Me, I'm better than him. You created me from fire, you created him from clay. Right? Careful of this ana, me. Who else? What? لي الملك اليوم لي الملك مصر لي ملك مصر. For me is the ownership, the dominion of Egypt. I own Egypt. Who said this? Pharaoh. Obviously Pharaoh. And the third, إنما أوتيته على علم عندي. I was only given this because of some kind of knowledge or some kind of skill. You know, I saw a gap in the market, I saw an opportunity, and I went for it. I deserve this. Right? The cure to this is what? To keep reminding ourselves, it's Allah who gave you any opportunity. It's Allah who gave you any skill. It's Allah who gave you that wealth in the first place. Who gave you the two eyes to see the opportunity in the first place? But we're kind of flowing against the current here. You know, society at large is telling us, no, you're the, astaghfirullah, you're the God, right? You're the object of worship, your own desires. Whatever you want, you get. Because I'm worth it. Some brothers have very nice shiny hair, you know, with volume and body. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, L'Oreal slogan, because I'm worth it. This type of economics, the neoliberal ideology that has dominated the world in the last 50 or so years, puts people essentially as competitors in an open market of the world. Right? And this breeds the opposite as well. Not only does it breed selfishness, arrogance, self-centeredness, competing with your, fellow human being for limited resources, for ever-increasing profits, but it also breeds a hatred for the poor. Why? And you hear this from or you feel this from the way people are talking about benefit scroungers and this and that, right? A hatred for the poor. Why? Because they're lazy. Again, completely ignoring Allah's qadr in the matter. And this is something we have to bear in mind because, many of us are up against this. Okay? And, the world today is full of so much fitna, so much corruption, so much wrong that is directly linked to this, directly linked to wealth, the desire for more, the bottom line, the desire for resources, right? How else can you imagine, maybe 100 years ago, anyone, can you imagine, even today, if people actually knew what was happening outside of these four walls? Somebody being paid a few pence, thousands of miles away, for a pair of trainers that cost £200 here. In which universe does that make sense? But this is a free market, and the bottom line is what matters. Okay? Human beings generally have good fitrah. Allah has given us, as individuals, a sense of right and wrong. But that is clouded when the desire for this worldly glitter and glamour gets in the way. So it makes sense apparently for nurses to get a 14% pay cut, right? Nurses who are taking care of you and me when we get sick, right? Who have to now use food banks. Many nurses are using food banks now, right? Whilst executives in the same company, in the same organization, are being paid millions altogether, right? Why? Because money just makes us do silly things. If you can choose a small number of people and enrich them, that will let you get away with impoverishing everyone else, right? Unfortunately, many people will go for it. Especially people who feel no moral accountability, right? We're just doing our jobs. We're supposed to, it's part of the corporate environment to try and maximize profit. And I'm being good at my job, right? وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. That should be the number one goal. Yeah, get some money, get some profit here, nobody's stopping you. But the ultimate goal is what? Use what Allah has given you to seek the home of the hereafter, first and foremost. But what did Qarun actually say? Right? He said, I was only given this wealth because of something I had. Okay, something with me. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this, or his people are responding to him. Right? أَوَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَهْلَكَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ مَنْ هُوَ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُ قُوَّةً وَأَكْثَرُ جَمْعًا. Allahu Akbar. Look at this response. Doesn't he know that Allah destroyed before him generations, from generations, those who were greater than him in power and in the wealth that they had collected? وَلَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذُنُوبِهِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. But the criminals about their sins won't be asked. Right? On the day of resurrection, everything will be clear. What are they actually saying? What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling me and you? Qarun is falling foul of the simple, perhaps most common mistake people who are given wealth fall into. And that is, Allah has given me wealth, so I must be doing something right. Yeah? Allah has given me wealth, business is booming. Alhamdulillah. Allah must be pleased with us. Even if that business is an off license or something. Right? What's the issue here? What's the actual thing that you can pinpoint here? It's not just saying, yeah, I'm the source of this, but also this hidden, subtle mistake that many of us fall into, and that is when something materially good happens to us, We think, oh, Allah must be pleased with us. Then Allah is saying now, doesn't He know that we destroyed people who were more wealthy than this? I.e., just because you're wealthy doesn't mean Allah likes you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives wealth to people He loves, and He gives wealth to people He doesn't love. Prophet ﷺ said in a beautiful hadith, I don't have the wording here, just paraphrasing, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives wealth to the one He loves and the one He doesn't love, but He only gives iman to the one who loves. Allahu Akbar. He only gives iman to the one He loves. May Allah make us among them. Ameen. So, not only did he fall into this mistake, but he backed it up with some action. He backed it up with arrogant behavior. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ. So he came out before his people in all his adornment. Right? And you can imagine today what that would look like, in his 50-car motorcade, in his, very expensive Bentley, Rolls Royce, whatever, right? The finest clothes, splashing out, showing off his wealth. And what did that lead to? Straight after, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ يُرِيدُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا يَا لَيْتَ لَنَا مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ قَارُونَ إِنَّهُ ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. Those who desired the worldly life from his people, those people who are watching, they said, oh, woe to us. If only we had something similar to what Qarun was given. He is really lucky, man. And this, in a subtle way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us one of the problems I mentioned earlier about wealth. Okay? One of the biggest vices and sources of corruption is when people with wealth, right, more wealth than others, become the benchmark, become the object of adoration by people with less. Right? And it's not always this explicit. In fact, it probably never is. Somebody literally going out just to show off his wealth. But it happens subtly. Oh yeah, that's a nice car you've got there. Yeah, I just got a brand new Mercedes, alhamdulillah. Yeah, 3-litre turbo, leather seats, whatever. I'll explain this. I had a Citroen. Not the one that he was complaining about, blocking people before anyone. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Oh yeah, I just came back from a holiday, 5-star skiing, only cost like 10,000-15,000 pounds, yeah. Or when you're lining up in the row, you put your keys in front just before Salat and you make sure the BMW logo is showing. Yeah. This is subtle indicators of what? Our nafs craving for that attention, craving for that endorphin rush. When people say, wow, look what you have. And on the other side, imagine, and this happens in many of the lands that our parents hailed from. In one street, right next to each other, you'll have an extremely wealthy person and an extremely poor person. Right? And when the wealthy person has a wedding, it becomes the talk of the town. Oh, look at all these dancing elephants and this and all this extravagance. Imagine the person who has a few daughters who is poor, and he's looking at that and he's saying, oh my God, how am I going to get my children married? Why? It doesn't cost that much money to get married. Trust me. Right? All you have to do is find, an imam somewhere, and then that's it. You're actually married. But what is the poison that has entered our minds? Look, this is the standard of a wedding. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is what my shoes are supposed to look like. My phone is supposed to look like. This is what car I'm supposed to drive. This is what type of house I'm supposed to live in. Where do these standards come from? They come from the upper limit. They come from people who do more, who are more well off than you and I am. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, when you're comparing yourself to someone in the dunya, compare yourself to someone lesser than you. When you're comparing yourself to someone in terms of akhirah, in terms of the deen, compare yourself to someone better than you. But unfortunately, we do the opposite. We say, oh look, I just tried to think of a football player, but all I came up with is Cantona. It's like 20 years ago. Ronaldo has brand new, BMW M5. Wow, what can I get now that's as close as possible to that standard I've set? Why don't you look at the uncle down the road with a Lada and say, you know what, my Citroen looks really good compared to that. It will make you happier, not just logically. It will make you happier genuinely, right? And it will make you grateful to Allah. But doing the opposite to what the Prophet ﷺ said, comparing yourself to the wealthy, not only will it make you all sad and feeling not content, but it will make you feel ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it will throw your life off this balance that we need. Right? But instead we should compare ourselves to those people better than us in our deen. Don't say, oh mum, at least, some of my friends don't pray. Why are you telling me to pray all 5? At least I'm praying 1 or 2. Oh no. You should compare yourself to the people who pray all 5 prayers and in the 9 and fasting and read Quran a lot and all these types of things. So what? So it will push you up. It will give you that boost to keep on improving. So we have to be very, very wary of the effect from ourselves, okay? And all of us, alhamdulillah, are more well off than some people, probably most people on earth, right? We have to be very careful how we come across. The subconscious hints that we are giving of our wealth. Doesn't mean you have to go around with, broken, torn clothes and whatnot. Inna Allaha jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. He loves to see beauty in His creatures, and for those things we have a choice over. But remember what some of the fuqaha said in terms of what the conditions of halal clothes are. Right? We all memorize the quick ones. It has to be covering your aura, has to be opaque, can't be see-through, it has to be loose, can't be tight. Right? But what do some of them also say? Be careful. It can't break the heart of the poor. Right? Dressing well is one thing, but dressing in a way that intimidates and makes people less well off than you feel sad and upset, now you're coming into potentially haram territory. And unfortunately, again with the neoliberalism, again with the capitalism, again with consume culture, this is what we're taught right from the beginning. Right? I still subconsciously, when I see high-tech shoes, when I see high-tech trainers, I just think the alarm bell goes off my head. Why? People maybe my age, I think, remembering this, When you're in school, that was the thing that was looked down upon. You know, you're going to have to get the Nike tick or the Adidas or the Puma or the this or the that. They're made in the same factory by some Vietnamese kid. Trust me. Right? But on the way here, they each get a different, little label put on them. And then we're in this race. Who can get the nicest trainers? Aha, you've got rubbish ones, you've got the wrong ones. Let's put that person down. This is unfortunately inculcated into us from society around us. Why? Because some people want to turn us into robotic consumers. Just consume, consume, consume. We have to resist this. Why? Because Allah is saying, be careful. وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ. So that's from our perspective. Okay, as people maybe who might intimidate others with less wealth. From the other perspective of us looking up at people with more wealth, we should be very careful about this. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught those people a lesson who said, wow, look at Qarun, look at what he's got. We wish we had something like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ وَيْلَكُمْ ثَوَابُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لِمَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الصَّابِرُونَ. But those who had been given knowledge from the people of Qarun, they said to those people who were saying, oh, we wish we had what Qarun had. No, the people who were given some knowledge, they said to them, no, woe to you. The reward of Allah is better for he who has iman and does righteousness, and none is granted this except the patient. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused something to happen. فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِهِ الْأَرْضِ فَمَا كَانَ لَهُ مِنْ فِئَةٍ يَنْصُرُونَهُ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُنْتَصِرِينَ. And we caused the earth to swallow him and his home, i.e. and his wealth. And there was for him no company to aid him besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor was he of those who could defend themselves. So, let's rewind a bit. His people, he came out with all his pomp and glamour. His people, some of them said, wow, look at the wealth that he's got. We wish we had something like him. He's certainly a really lucky person. Some people who had knowledge, they said, woe to you, don't think like this. That which is with Allah in the akhirah is better than anything you can gain in this dunya. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an example of Qarun. He caused the earth to swallow him up and his wealth. And then وَأَصْبَحَ الَّذِينَ تَمَنَّوْا مَكَانَهُ بِالْأَمْسِ. And those people who had wished to be in his position yesterday are the people who were saying, wow, look at how much wealth he has. يَقُولُونَ وَيْكَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَيَقْدِرُ. Oh, how Allah extends his provisions to whom he wills of his slaves, and he restricts it. They learn their lesson. It's Allah. It is in Allah's will whom he gives and whom he withholds from. لَوْلَا أَمَّنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا لَخَسَفَ بِنَا وَيْكَأَنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُونَ. And if it wasn't for the fact that Allah had such a great favor on us, right, we would have also been buried with Qarun. He would have also caused the earth to swallow us. And oh, how the disbelievers do not succeed. تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That home of the hereafter, Allah says, we assign to those or we make for those who do not desire being the big man on earth, do not desire to be superior to others in an arrogant sense, nor do they desire corruption. And the best outcome, the end, is for the people with taqwa, the muttaqeen. Man ja'a bil hasanati falahu khayrun minha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, look at this, ending this story here. Whoever comes with any hasana, any good deed, then Allah will reward it better than what it was in the first place. In the akhirah, whoever comes with a good deed, Allah will reward it with better than it. وَمَنْ جَاءَ بِالسَّيِّئَةِ فَلَا يُجْزَى الَّذِينَ عَمِلُوا السَّيِّئَاتِ إِلَّا مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. But whoever comes with an evil deed, then those who did evil deeds will not be recompensed except as much as what they used to do. This is what this whole life boils down to at the end of the day. If you come with something good on the day of resurrection, Allah will be generous, extra generous with you. He will give you better than what you did, what you actually deserved. Allah, out of His generosity, will give you better. And whoever comes with something evil, then look at Allah's justice. He's not giving them more evil than they, more bad end or bad recompense than they deserve. He is punishing them. He will give them exactly what they deserved. May Allah protect us from this. So, that is in a nutshell, a very long nutshell, the story of Qarun. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings when it comes to wealth particularly. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq, the guidance, the success to actually act upon His guidelines when it comes to acquiring wealth and discharging of it in a way that He loves subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with that we'll end here.